Hi everyone, I'm gonna start out here and try to do some of the new podcasting here. So to start out with today, we are going to be taking a look at the overall kind of circulatory system here to start with, just do a brief overview, and then we'll take it from there in the rest of the chapter. So in terms of the overall circulatory system, we're looking at a number of things on this. Really, circulatory system is not going to be way different than what you would see in a plumbing system on your house. Um, any house is going to need some way to get water pressure, so every house has some type of water pump. You have the water, that's the fluid moving through your pipes, and then you have the pipes. The circulatory system is very similar to that. We have the blood, which is a lot like the water in your pipes at your house. You have the heart, which is a lot like whatever your well or pump is in your house. And then finally, you have the blood vessels, which act a lot like the pipes would in your house. Again, we'll see some definite differences as we start talking about circulation overall in terms of blood pressure and things like that. Definitely a little bit different than than water pressure, but all in all, pretty similar. So when you look at our overall circulatory system, you can see you have the heart in the center here, and then you have really what it's a two-sided pump. So we have one side, which would be the left side of the heart, which pumps to the entire systemic circuit. Then you have the right side of the heart, which is going to pump out to this pulmonary circuit, which then comes back to the left side of the heart. So really, it's kind of two pumps in one. So why is the cardiovascular system needed? Basically what it comes down to is somewhere way back, probably billions of years ago, life really, they believe, started out in the oceans. And when life first started out, you were looking at what were basically bacteria-like organisms. These things were single cell, and where were their nutrients? They were in the area surrounding them. As these organisms started to get more and more complex, you start getting these cells that, as you can see here, cells surrounding other cells. As this kind of continues on, what you're going to get is sooner or later, and this goes back to a topic that we would have discussed in A&P1, and that is the idea that diffusion only works so far. Once you start getting cells that are getting a little too far away from whatever the nutrient source is, they're not going to be able to get enough nutrients. So what happens as we get these really multicellular organisms is that you have too much space, and because of this we have to start getting vessels like it's showing here and here and here, getting those into these particular areas. And what this allows it to do is, back when you're a single cell organism, pretty much if you didn't like the environment you're in or you weren't having the right nutrients, the basic thing you needed to do was to move around and get to an area where you had those nutrients. When we start getting multicellular, if you start looking at our bodies, we have over 100, we believe 100 trillion cells, and of those, actually none of them move around and swim around. So really, when it starts coming to the body and getting the nutrients that the cell needs, and when this is something again we talked back about in AP1, how the cell gets things in or out of it, is it's pretty much going to be diffusion, osmosis, those typical things. But that internal environment of the cell, the only way it's going to maintain homeostasis with its external environment is you have to put the things it needs in the area around the cell. So in order to do that here, we have to have blood vessels that are going to put the nutrients that we need, so things like water, glucose, and a lot of the other stuff here, into this space surrounding the cell. And that's when it's going to then allow the cell to be able to decide what does it want or not want. And again, our goal here is to have the cell have the particular things that it's going to need. So to maintain homeostasis by delivering everything that the cell needs to the area surrounding the cell. And that's why if I ever ask you a question in class, what is in blood? The most simple answer that you could ever really come up with is going to be anything that needs to get in or out of a cell. At some level or another, you are going to see it in the blood. And that's why maybe, and I believe it's in maybe the next show, that I'll show you the thing here. It has a list, and it's not even close to being comprehensive, but 4 to 5 slides of just stuff that's in the blood at some level. And again, this external environment for all these different systems needs to be just about perfect. And again, the blood is what's delivering all this stuff. And when we look at the overall kind of ideas of what the circulatory system does, first and foremost, it is a transportation system. So it's going to transport nutrients. and necessary things, life-supporting materials like oxygen. I mean, but then again, you get glucose, fatty acids, vitamins, all this stuff like that. The other thing it does is it delivers messages throughout the body. So it's going to transport those messages, things like hormones that we talked about with the endocrine system. And then as well, it's going to pick up all these waste that cells generate and get those to the areas where they're going to be where they're going to get rid of it. So things like delivering things to the kidneys, the lungs. The other thing it moves around is heat throughout the body. The second thing we'll do here, and this is going to be to one particular type of cells in the blood, is protection. So when we look at what it's going on here, the white blood cells, one of their main things they're going to do is that is your basic immune system, which we will deal with in other chapters and other podcasts here. But that is one of the main functions of the blood cells as well, is to protect the body from foreign microorganisms and abnormal cells.